It was one of those days where everything felt off. The kind of day where your coffee burns your tongue, the subway smells worse than usual, and the world just seems to whisper, "You're screwed, buddy." Rachel Davis, 38 years old, wasn't a stranger to bad days, but this one? This one was shaping up to be legendary. Rachel lived in Brooklyn, just a stone's throw from the chaos of Manhattan. She wasn't flashy, her wardrobe screamed practicality, and her apartment, though tidy, had that lived-in charm. But don't let the modest setup fool you. Rachel was sharp as hell, a woman who knew how to read people like a poker player at a rigged table. She had to. Life had taught her that trust was as rare as a parking spot in New York City. That evening, Rachel decided to clear her head with a jog. Running was her therapy, her way of punching life's stress in the face without getting arrested for it. She laced up her sneakers, grabbed her earbuds, and headed to the park. The air was crisp, the kind that bites your cheeks but clears your mind. She passed the usual crowd, dog walkers, couples arguing over takeout, and that one guy who always jogged shirtless regardless of the weather. She just rounded the corner by an old bodega, shuttered and graffiti-covered, when she heard the unmistakable tone of authority. "Ma'am, stop right there!" Rachel froze mid-step, her heart doing a quick double-take. She turned to see two cops, both white, both radiating the kind of energy that screamed, "I've got something to prove." "Yes?" she said, yanking out an earbud. "Is there a problem?" The older one, Sergeant Trent, because of course his name was Trent, stepped forward, his face a smirk-filled mask of arrogance. "Yeah, there's a problem," he said, pointing at her like she'd just stolen the crown jewels. "We got a call about suspicious activity in this area. Care to explain what you're doing?" Rachel blinked. "Suspicious activity? In yoga pants and a hoodie?" "I'm jogging," she replied, her tone flat. "You know, like running for exercise, ever heard of it?" The younger cop shifted uncomfortably, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. Trent, on the other hand, seemed to be enjoying himself. "Funny," he said, stepping closer. "Jogging, huh? You always jog near abandoned stores at night?" Rachel crossed her arms. "Are you serious right now? What, is this a slow crime night for you guys?" Trent's smirk turned into a grin, the kind that said, "Gotcha." Before she knew it, he'd motioned for the younger cop, and suddenly she was being handcuffed. "Whoa, whoa, whoa," Rachel protested, twisting her wrists. "What the hell are you doing? I didn't do anything." "Tell it to the judge," Trent said, his voice dripping with smug satisfaction. By now, a few onlookers had gathered, whispering amongst themselves. Rachel's face burned. Not from embarrassment, but pure, unfiltered rage. She locked eyes with Trent, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "You're making a mistake," Trent chuckled, ignoring her. "Yeah, sure, you joggers always say that." As they shoved her into the back of the squad car, Rachel's mind raced. This wasn't a mistake. It was a setup. But why? And by whom? She didn't have time to figure it out. The door slammed shut, cutting off her view of the night sky. In the holding cell, the stench hit her first. A mix of sweat, despair, and bad decisions. The place was crowded with women. Some drunk, some furious, and some just tired. Rachel sat on the bench, trying to process what had just happened. Her mind was a whirlpool of questions, each one louder than the last. Across the cell, a woman named Shelley, whose demeanor screamed, "Queen of bad choices," took one look at Rachel and snorted. "Let me guess," Shelley said, leaning back against the wall. "First time?" Rachel didn't respond. She wasn't in the mood for small talk. "What did they get you for, huh?" Shelley pressed. "Jaywalking? Stealing candy? You don't look like the crack-dealing type." Rachel finally looked up, her eyes cold. "Jogging?" Shelley laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Jogging? Damn, girl, you must have been jogging with bricks of cocaine in your pockets." Rachel clenched her fists, forcing herself to stay calm. "I didn't do anything." Shelley rolled her eyes. Yeah, that's what they all say." By the time the night was over, Rachel had been processed, fingerprinted, and thrown back into the cell like yesterday's trash. Her only solace was the faint thought that this wasn't the end. Whatever game these cops were playing, she wasn't going to let them win. As she lay on the hard bench, staring at the flickering light above her, she muttered under her breath, "You idiots have no idea who you're messing with." And she meant it. Rachel wasn't just any ordinary woman. Who she truly is will blow your mind. But you'll have to stick around to hear the whole story. Trust us, you don't want to miss a second of it. Rachel woke up to the sound of shouting. Loud, angry, and way too early for someone who hadn't slept. The cell felt even smaller than it had the night before, and the air thick with regret and sweat. "Hey, Sleeping Beauty!" Shelley barked from across the cell, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Wake up and smell the injustice." Rachel rolled her eyes and sat up, her neck stiff from the rock-hard bench she'd been using as a bed. 3 days. That's how long they said she'd be stuck here before her court appearance. 3 days of this circus. Her first trip out of the cell was to a dimly lit interrogation room that smelled like old coffee and bad decisions. And there he was, Sergeant Trent. He looked smug, like a cat that just dragged in a bird it didn't even plan to eat. "Good morning, sunshine," he greeted, leaning back in his chair. "Sleep well?" Rachel crossed her arms, refusing to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. "What do you want?" Trent smirked, tossing a small plastic bag onto the table. Inside, a suspicious-looking white powder. "This look familiar?" he asked. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I saw something like that once, in a bad cop movie." Trent's smirk faltered for half a second before he leaned forward. "You think this is a joke? You're looking at some serious time." Rachel leaned in, her voice low and steady. "And you think I'm stupid? I don't touch drugs, and you know it. Whatever this little act is, it's sloppy." Trent's face darkened. "Careful, sweetheart. You don't want to dig yourself a deeper hole." Rachel tilted her head, her expression calm, but calculating. "You've already dug it for me, haven't you?" Back in the cell, Shelley was waiting with her usual brand of sarcasm. "So, how was your date with Officer Douchebag?" she asked, not even looking up. Rachel plopped onto the bench, exhausted. "Productive. I told him his plan was crap." Shelley let out a loud laugh. "Oh, honey, they don't care about plans. They care about winning. You're just another notch on their belt." Rachel stared at the grimy floor, her mind racing. Shelley wasn't wrong. This wasn't about justice or truth. It was about power. But there was something else, something off. This wasn't random. It couldn't be. By the third day, Rachel had pieced together one crucial detail. Trent was hiding something. The way he dodged her questions, the way he tried too hard to intimidate her, it all screamed guilty. But guilty of what? As she was escorted to the courthouse, she couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. Her reputation, her life, everything was hanging by a thread. But deep down, she felt it. That flicker of defiance, the one that refused to let these bastards win. Because despite the handcuffs and the bullshit charges, Rachel Davis wasn't just another victim, not by a long shot. The courthouse was cold, colder than Rachel expected. Not temperature-wise, but in that soul-sucking, bureaucratic way where you feel like just another number in a never-ending lineup of lives being crushed. Rachel was marched in like a prop in some bad daytime crime show, handcuffs clinking just enough to draw attention. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs as spectators glanced her way, their judgment dripping from every stare. She scanned the room. There he was, Sergeant Trent, sitting like he owned the damn place, flashing that smug smile. Beside him was his younger partner, looking like a kid who'd just broken his mom's favorite vase. And on the bench, the judge, pale, with a face so stern it could crack concrete. "Defendant, please rise," the bailiff called, his voice mechanical. Rachel stood, her posture straight, her face unreadable. Inside, though, she was a storm ready to rip through the room. Trent was the first to take the stand, and boy, did he put on a performance. He described Rachel like she was the second coming of Scarface, painting a picture so absurd it bordered on parody. "She was lurking around the area," he said, emphasizing every word like it was gospel. "We found this on her person." He held up the plastic baggie for the jury to see, as if it was Exhibit A in a museum of lies. Rachel's lawyer, a court-appointed suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, leaned over and whispered, "This doesn't look good." Rachel shot him a glare. "No shit, Sherlock. Thanks for the insight." When her turn came to speak, Rachel stood, her voice steady but sharp enough to cut glass. "Your Honor, with all due respect, this is a farce." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Care to elaborate, Miss Davis?" Rachel stepped forward, every word calculated. "Let's get something straight. I'm a runner, not a dealer. This evidence was planted, plain and simple. And as for Sergeant Trent over there," she pointed, locking eyes with him, "he's not as clean as he wants you to believe." The courtroom buzzed. Trent shifted in his seat, his confident smirk faltering for the first time. Rachel noticed, filing it away for later. She wasn't done. Not even close. "Objection!" Trent's lawyer barked, standing so fast his chair wobbled. "Miss Davis is making baseless accusations." Rachel smirked, her voice calm, but laced with venom. "Oh, trust me. I have more than a base for my accusations. But for now, I'll let your boy squirm." The judge slammed his gavel, calling for order. Rachel sat back down, but not before shooting Trent one last look. The kind of look that said, "I know your game, and I'm about to beat you at it." As the session adjourned for the day, Rachel walked out of the courtroom, her mind racing. She could feel the walls closing in, but she also felt something else. Momentum. This wasn't just a fight for her freedom anymore. This was personal. Court resumed the next day, and the room was thick with tension. Rachel sat at the defendant's table, calm on the outside, but inside, she was a ticking time bomb, ready to detonate at just the right moment. Across the room, Sergeant Trent looked a little too comfortable, leaning back in his chair like he was watching a rerun of his favorite cop show. The judge entered, stone-faced as ever, and the courtroom fell silent. "Miss Davis," the judge began, his tone dripping with boredom, "you've requested to present evidence in your defense. You may proceed, though I'd advise against wasting this court's time." Rachel stood slowly, smoothing her blazer as she walked to the front. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes? Oh, they were alive with something fierce. She placed a small flash drive on the desk in front of the clerk. "This," she said, her voice sharp and steady, "is footage from a security camera near the scene of my so-called arrest." Trent's smug grin vanished, replaced by a flicker of panic. The courtroom lights dimmed as the footage began to play on the large screen. The grainy video showed two figures, Sergeant Trent and his younger partner, standing behind the very same bodega where Rachel had been jogging, but they weren't patrolling the area. Oh no, they were handing over a briefcase stuffed with cash to the judge. Gasps filled the room. Someone muttered, "What the hell?" The judge's face went pale, his hands gripping the bench like he was holding on for dear life. Trent shot to his feet. "This is doctored," he barked. "It's fake." Rachel turned, her expression calm but deadly. "Really, Sergeant? Because this is the original footage from the city's surveillance cameras, and I have more copies than you can count." Trent's mouth opened, but no words came out. The younger cop beside him looked ready to crawl under the table. Rachel faced the judge, her voice unwavering. "Your Honor, it seems the officer who arrested me and the judge presiding over my case have been working together. And while I'd love to stay and chat, I think this is a conversation for the feds now, don't you?" The room exploded. Reporters scribbled furiously and spectators whispered loudly enough to rival a Broadway audience. The judge stammered, trying to regain control, but it was too late. Federal agents entered the courtroom, their presence cutting through the chaos. Within minutes, the judge and Trent were in handcuffs, their faces a mix of fury and disbelief. As Rachel sat back down, one of the agents approached her, nodding respectfully. "Inspector Davis, we'll take it from here." The crowd fell silent. For a moment, all eyes were on Rachel. Her secret was out. She stood, adjusted her blazer, and turned to the stunned courtroom. "Next time," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "maybe don't underestimate the runner." And with that, she walked out, leaving behind a room full of people who would never forget the name Rachel Davis. Thank you to everyone who listened to this story. We truly hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel, Life Mosaic, where we bring you the most compelling and unforgettable stories. We're always working hard to deliver content that keeps you on the edge of your seat. We'll see you tomorrow. Same place, same energy. Take care and stay curious.